5?
A lot of them are really easy. For one, I have to just plan out a worship service. The other one, I just have to turn in a manuscript of one of the sermons that I've already preached. And then the other 3 are actual finals.
And what's the last day?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Wow.
So
You don't have much time, do you?
Yep.
Hey, you can do it.
well, he's one of the earlier ones finishing. All the other ones are delayed for about another week. So it's
He can go to work earlier.
he's already doing that.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I knew he had a job. I didn't know whether he was.
Oh, they're working him like a dog. Yep.
All right. No one brought any more stuff for those packs, right? We're all done with everything.
I'll do the firemen's. I didn't do that because I haven't had time to get to the store. I haven't.
All right. Now, if you had time to go get a cow bone, you had time to go.
No, I didn't either. I didn't.
Super. Anyway, so that's complete. So we're done with that. So if Jackie will help you get that into the car, and then Fox's Hollow gave the cash for them to go buy whatever else they could. But that should get us towards 75 kids with that.
Now, when is the other one?
May the 19th. I'm all over everything. So Thursday is our next service. And that is, I'm not doing the hour of prayer on live stream. We're having National Day of Prayer at Emmanuel at 6 o'clock. And that's for everyone to be at because, again, it's a corporate prayer meeting. And the noon one is at the courthouse led by Gordon Brubaker. In case it rains, they're at, help me, Living Faith? Living Faith. So they'll have it in the church if it's raining with that. So noon, 6 o'clock, and then Sunday, first Sunday of the month, we got prayer that night, community prayer. Fox's Hollow has prayer rather than Sunday school. And then Rebecca graduates Saturday. May 12th is Mother's Day, and Ashley graduates from WVU. May 19th is Pentecost Sunday. And that is the last day for the burnout project. So everything that we have we'll take, and then Kristen was going to take that and drop it off at the fire hall with the note that it was from the churches and participation with that.
Now, who's Ashley?
As Joshua's fiance.
Okay. Does yours not graduate? I thought Matt.
She graduates
Emma.
the 23rd from Frostburg.
Okay.
Sometime.
What?
I don't know.
Let me help you with that. It's the 23rd.
You better know.
And then, so you got end of school, and as we talked yesterday, they have had some success, but again, they continue to have issues, and now it's spreading across into Europe with the college campuses. And so I think what the administration was trying to do was that since it is finals week, they thought, okay, we got one more week, all the students will go home, and then that'll end this stuff. But now they're talking about CEOs are afraid that their employees are going to do it in their factories.
Well, you see with that SARS, though, he's paying people to go in and do it too.
They pay for chaos.
Mm-hmm.
They pay
Oh,
for
really?
enough
Yeah, they
people to
have.
have-
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
they-
they have. Actually, have groups they bring in to do
Yeah,
it.
but that's what I'm saying. That's why they're not. A lot of them's not going home because they don't go to school there or anything. So.
So it's still an issue, and again, it's the major issues that are having with that. And then we got 5 weeks left of the county schools. Pray for safety, protection there. And then Memorial Day as it comes up, because it's always a 4-day weekend of trouble. And so just pray in advance now as we get into May with that. If you saw that in Charlotte, North Carolina, 4 police officers gunned down.
Oh, no, did not see
One or
that.
2 killed, and then that was a standoff. It was a shooter, and so I'm telling you, this is one of our worst months up for police officers, and I think that pushes us to 10 or 11 with that, and let's see, the tornadoes. I think they're. Are you supposed to get storms tonight? I think down must be Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana, because they said strong storms on the Gulf Coast. from those tornadoes tonight with that front. So it's not over yet with that. But that's some of the headlines, again, just to keep in prayer. And the National Day of Prayer is our main focus for what's next on all that. They all got off to camp, and so just pray for the week that they have opportunities to minister, safety, and so that all that goes well. Okay. What else? Anything else on your heart or mind?
I have 2 more rounds of
Facial?
facial.
Okay.
You can see it's.
How's it been doing that? I mean, it hasn't been burning real bad, has
No,
it?
you can see. Can you see where they're at?
Well, yeah.
Did that vinegar, apple cider, whatever they told you, did
Vinegar.
it
Yeah.
help?
Yes.
Good.
I did it to see me. He said, "You get your facial." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It burns," but I said, "It's crazy, but it's a feel good burn because it takes it
She's
away
small.
the itching and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you smell like a pickle?
probably I might be a sour one."
All right. Anything else? All right, Jacob, you want to open us up in prayer then?
Oh, Holy Father, we thank you for this time to gather together in your name and to study your word. Father, I just pray that you would be with us in this hour. Lord, just keep away any distractions or any technical difficulties. Father, I pray that our eyes will be set upon you. As we draw close to you, that you would draw close to us. Father, just speak to us through your word tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Deuteronomy 31, we left off verse 20, so we got 20 through 30 to finish this chapter out in the bottom of that. Now 32, we're not going to cover all these verses. It'll be a quick coverage because it's that song, the Song of Moses, 1 through 44 with that. So we'll see how far we get. But any questions out of the scriptures?
I had one, but I didn't write it down. I did write it down, but I didn't bring it, so I forgot what it was.
Okay. All right. Let's start in verse 20 then. 20 through 30 takes us to the end of the chapter. For when I shall have, now again, the setting that we left off last week, if you remember verse 16, is that Moses was called to go in with Joshua to go into the temple, the tabernacle, and there they stood before God. And God spoke to Moses. Now, he didn't so much speak to Joshua, but he told Moses, and he's getting ready to tell him what's going to come in the future for them. And I made the comment to you, I said, I would rather had not heard such bad news than to have to hear what Joshua had to hear for what the people were going to do, because that would discourage me to say, heck with this, get someone else if they're not going to listen and they're going to rebel against you, Lord. I don't want nothing to do with it. But I'm jumping ahead here a little bit. So let's just do verse 20. This is where God starts to speak and reveal. For when I shall have brought them into the land which I swear unto their fathers. Again, the swearing unto the fathers was with who?
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah, and it was the covenant that he made with them. And they had two aspects of the covenant. Of course, you remember both aspects. Huh?
Yeah, he's going to multiply as the stars in the sky and the sand on the beach. And he took Abraham up on the hill and said, as far as you can see, I'll give you that land.
Right, on all directions, north, south, east, and west. And he said, all this will be your descendants in that. So that was the two, and he fulfilled that. And that's what he swore unto their fathers, that he would bring them into this promised land in the midst of that. Well, I stand corrected. 3 U.S. Marshals were killed and 5 officers were injured in that Charlotte shootout. That headline just come up. So a land that flows with milk and honey. And again, that reference, as you read through the scriptures, you see that time and time again. Is how do you see that? How do you defined that a land of milk and honey.
Very prosperous
How come?
because they was obedient.
Right? But what does milk have to do and honey have to do with prosperity?
Flows.
Huh?
It flows.
Flows? Okay.
Well, that's what John the
Well, if
Baptist,
it's
they was
flooding,
milk
then
and
they
honey.
wouldn't have to worry about like food or drink.
It's enough sustenance, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you got milk, and like again, to have cattle, goats, and whatnot, and none of them have milk, you're in trouble. Now, honey is just it's the most unique thing that God ever created to me, isn't it?
Mm.
The way that it's made, the way that, again, when they harvest that, if you've ever been around beekeepers and that kind of stuff, and that, but the medicinal things of honey
Yes.
just blows me off out of the water with that. That stuff will cure anything with honey.
I was gonna say,
And
it's
vinegar,
like
yeah.
vinegar, right?
They
yeah.
use vinegar for everything. It just amazes me with that. But again, you got a cold, take honey. Put honey in your tea. If your immune system is down and you're not, eat honey. Again, not a lot. When Jonathan was out there in the battle in 1 Samuel, and he stuck out his sword, and the honey was dripping off the trees, and he stuck out his sword and he took it, and it says is that when he ate just a little bit off the end of the sword there, it says that his eyes were enlightened and he was immediately strengthened with that. It just amazes me when I think about some of the things with that. But here you have milk and honey of prosperity of the fruit of the land.
But our milk and honey's probably not any good. Truthfully.
Yeah, the bees still make
Our
the honey.
honey's still good.
If
It
you
just
get it
depends.
from a farmer, but if you go to store and buy it, it's no good.
I wouldn't
No.
trust it. No.
No, if you
No,
don't get that,
we
it's
get
called
ours
Manuka
made,
honey.
yeah.
It's, if you don't get raw honey.
No, we get ours local over here.
Well, now, those bees, I think it was out in California, wherever they harvest them out there to do all the crops in California, and they pay them like $20,000 for just a couple days' work. I mean, to do those beehives, to ship them out there, and then to pollinate all the crops and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. Our entire food system is based off the
You're
bees.
right, we better keep
With
these,
that.
yeah.
And then a couple of years ago, where they had that blight and it was going through and killing them all, and they couldn't figure out what it was, and then food prices were going to go up and all this kind of stuff. It tells us a lot about how God can keep everything balanced and in sync. But then again, as a judgment, he says, not good milk, but curdled milk. Spoiled milk that's no good, honey that is hard to find. I don't know where, again, old timers used to walk through the woods and they could find honey in the trees. I remember Dad taking us down here on Dan's Mountain, and he said, "Do you hear that?" And you could hear the hive humming. And he said, and then he reached in there and got some of that honey. Best wildest moment I ever had, because then after that we had to run because he stirred them
The
up.
bees will come in.
But I couldn't find any today to go looking around. Do you have any places?
Not right offhand. I really haven't been looking for them. But
I just, find yellow jackets down in the ground and hornets in the.
Clyde McCarty down there, above Ron's post office, he had a swarm come in there in his yard that one day. And we was down there working on the barn, and they swarmed, and we tried to catch them. And I didn't get the lift up high enough or quick enough to catch them. But that's only once in my lifetime.
Clyde that used to go to our church
Clyde.
out here.
That's who it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Clyde.
I just run into him the other day.
When I was younger. Todd Banfield.
Yeah.
He was over five.
I just,
But that's what
that's what I just said. I thought about that from time to time, is to say, now take off and go. I wouldn't have the first place to say, there's bees around.
Yeah.
So where are they harvesting it? I don't know.
Well, Jay's got over across from the railroad track there. Somebody has one over there. He lets them have it over there. It's not his, but
In the boxes.
I
Yeah.
guess that's what
I'm
it is.
talking about wild,
tree,
in
yeah.
the tree or in ground or something.
Mostly, if anybody hears of them, they got snatched up because the bees are still what
Scarce.
they say the rarest around here.
And that's like I said, there's big money in there with all that. Anyway, milk and honey for the land that he gave. And they shall have eaten and filled themselves. And again, enough, not there is abundance there. No one is starving, no one is famished or anything like that. But the difficulty with that comes next. And then when they shall have eaten and filled themselves and waxen fat, then they will turn unto other gods and serve them. They will provoke me and they will break my covenant. And again, from reading the Old Testament, you know that everything that God said there was fulfilled. As soon as they got what they wanted into the promised land and they became content, it is the danger of every nation, of every empire, of every kingdom, that this is the danger, is that when you become content, is that the first thing that you do is you leave God, you forsake God. Our nation's done that, and this is a description of us. We have eaten, we're filled, we're fat, and then again, we've turned to other gods, we've forsaken the Lord and provoked him to anger, and we've broken the covenant that our forefathers made with him back in 1600s when they came and landed at Pilgrim's Rock. And it shall come to pass that many evils and troubles are befallen them, that this song shall testify against them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten out of the mouth of their seed, for I know their imagination which they go about, even now before I have brought them into the land which I swear. Again, that God is omnipresent and he's omniscient, so he already knows what's going to be, which again, of us as well. Again, you read this and you think, well, that was the children of Israel, but he can say the same thing for our nation. He can say the same thing for the church, and he can say the same thing for us as individuals in the midst of that. But he says, once that this happens, he said, then comes the evils and the troubles. So that headline that I just read, the reason that I read those headlines and share those happenings, again, of epidemic proportions with that, is because this is where we're at in the midst of this. The only difference is we don't have a song like what they were given. Moses therefore wrote this song the very same day, and he taught it to the children of Israel. He gave Joshua the son of Nun a charge, and he said, be strong and of good courage. And if you go back to verse 5 and verse 7 in this same chapter, it was the same words, be strong and of good courage, because of what you're going to be facing when you go into that land. For thou shalt bring the children of Israel into the land which I swear unto them, and I will be with you. So again, even though their rebellion it's going to happen, God does not forsake them. He says, I will be with you. So his grace and his mercy, that even though we backslide or sin or fall short or come short of his glory, he still says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Just that we would just be as faithful as he was. And then we wouldn't have near the troubles that we have in the midst of this hour and this day. So that concludes that section of God talking to Moses and Joshua there. Any questions, comments on that? All right, then down 24 through 30 is the last section then. And it came to pass that when Moses had made an end of writing the words of this law in the book until they were finished, that Moses commanded the Levites to bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, saying, take this book of the law. Now the book is what? What is the book? What's it called? What's the name for it?
The tablets, or what Moses wrote on?
That this law.
Tabernacle.
No.
The Mosaic Law?
Huh?
10 Commandments?
Ten Commandments are a part of it. Philip, you ought to know this. It's called the Pentateuch. The Pentateuch is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and then they added Deuteronomy. The first 5 books is the Pentateuch. And it is this, which is the law of God. It is the statutes. It is the 10 Commandments. It is the history from the beginning with Adam, clear up of creation, the flood, the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then the law that Moses gave, and all the book of Leviticus, thou shalt not. It is all that in the Pentateuch. So this is the book of the law, and it's called the Pentateuch with
I
this.
thought it was another name too, those first 5 books, other than the Pentateuch. I mean,
Well, yeah, think of it. I mean,
Well, no, I don't know what I'm thinking. It just didn't, I know that's probably what it is. I know that's what it is as far as that goes, but I was thinking maybe another religion called it something else.
the Jews call it the Torah. They have in the Torah. Now I'd have to go back to see if the Torah is also the prophets or not. But so the Jews have the name for another name for that they call
I thought it was always called just the law.
it the law.
Hey, sound good to me.
Psalm 119. That's the interchange. The reason that I keep messing up on my verses is because every verse has a specific word for that. So one time you say law, the next time you say statutes, the next time you say commandments, the next time you say testimonies, the next time you say the word, and then the next one you say testimonies. There are 6 interchanging words. And so when I'm sitting there and I'm quoting that thing and I'll say, and they shall keep the law, and I should have said precepts. And I got to start over again because the words are very specific, but they interchange throughout the entire thing of Psalm 119 with that. And I again, Saturday, before we went to Morgantown, Saturday, I was kind of in a hurry, but I sat down and I zipped through that thing, and I messed up one verse, third from the last, verse 174. And I got 175, 176, but I messed up on 174. I said precepts instead of commandments. So I got to say it perfect or I won't count it as right. This morning, because again, I don't rehearse it on Sunday because of time. But I got back to it this morning and I missed 5 verses. But it's all within the last sections, the last thing there. So you still hear me. I'll sound like a banshee when I scream when I get that thing. So
I'll hear you everywhere I live.
you'll see it on archives where they'll say, "What was that? Was that a nuclear missile sound or not?" No, that was just Dan Beiser celebrating and he got all Psalm 119. All right. So 24, the book of the law, and when he wrote it out. Have you ever written, how much Bible have you ever written? Have you ever wrote a verse?
Oh, yeah.
Chapter?
Well, I did like Psalm 1 or 23.
Psalm 23. So how many verses? Remember? 6.
6. I was going to say it's
No.
not a whole lot.
Okay. Guy over at Fox's Hollow took that on as a project and he wrote out by hand the entire Bible. And it was like that he had. And I forget now how many pages that he had, just notebook paper. And I forget how long it took him now too. But I thought, man, what a project to sit and to do that. He worked on that thing. That was his constant thing. He just stayed at it. I thought it's bad, hard enough to stay in reading it, but to write it out with that, that was something else.
I couldn't read it after I wrote it down anyway. So.
Well, that's again, my chicken scratch is not the best either, but I could cheat and type, but and print it out, but I'd have more by doing it where I write my verses out. All right, so he takes the book of the law and he's instructed to put it into the ark. Now, again, as you go through the Old Testament, and they said that they looked into the ark, and later on in the Chronicles where it says they looked in, the only thing that was in there was the 10 Commandments. So there was Aaron's rod was gone, the pot that they had put in the manna in to preserve it, it was gone, and there was no mention of the book of the law that Moses had written. So there's no reference to it pretty much after this point. Now, someone else had penned it because when, I think I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, when Josiah had the temple cleaned, they found the book of the law. But it wasn't in the ark. It was in the Solomon's temple with that. But they had lost it. How great is that when you lose God's word? The instruction here is put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be therefore a witness against you. The word is always a witness. The very Bibles that you've got, in front of you right now is a witness against everybody of us and of those who refuse to come and those who refuse to hear it. We talked about this before. People say, well, they don't come to church or they don't read their Bible because they're not a Christian, but God's still going to hold them accountable because they was given freedoms and opportunity to take a Bible and to read it. Greg Gordon's testimony was that he was agnostic. He really didn't have a faith in the God or knew about Jesus or anything. But he was sitting in his room and he looked on his library bookshelf and there was the Bible, and whatever compelled him, the Holy Spirit, to go over, and he pulled that Bible out and he opened it up and started reading it and fell under conviction and got saved. And it was one of the few that I ever heard that they just decided, I got to read the Bible. Now, I know those that are like Josh McDowell. Josh McDowell's testimony is that he was an atheist and he wanted to disprove Christianity. So he had to say, the only way I can disprove Christianity is that I can prove that the Bible is wrong. But as he started to read the Bible, he fell under conviction and got saved. Josh McDowell's the guy that wrote More Than a Carpenter, and he was the one I went over to Ukraine and Russia with in that mission trip. But he did that back in his 20s. But there have been a lot of those who said, I'm going to disprove Christianity, but when they tried to do it, they themselves became Christians with all that. So that teaches us again, God says, my word will go out and it will not return to me void. The power of the word of God, that you have to have faith to believe that what God is saying here, one, we have already seen that. It is going to happen. All the word's going to come to pass. Just on what side are you going to be in this? You have those countries that don't have Bibles. They can't access Bibles. You have those countries that don't have education. They don't have translations. But our country, we are without excuse. We have a Bible. We have education. We have freedom. The Gideons have done more for the kingdom of God than probably Baptists, because they put the Bible in places that no one else would hardly ever get. Hotels, prisons, schools, and all that. Anytime they pass out a New Testament. It is putting that accountability in their hands with that. It's like that person I told you when they was in their living room and they pulled out their Bible and they went, and the dust rolled off of it. It doesn't matter whether they open it or not. They're still accountable because they got it in their home. And almost every home has a Bible, don't they? And whether it's a family Bible or heirloom.
Or a dozen of them, a dozen Bibles.
A bookcase corners where they use the big Bibles, the bookends. Or who told me that? Was it Carl who told me that? Is that they used to put it down and they put the kid on it because it was like a booster seat. Because it was someone told me that. Was it Carl? So in that, accountability, because the word is a witness against them. Verse 27, I know your rebellion and your stiff neck. Two sins again that you never hear confession, but this is just as much a part of our generation as this was for them, isn't it? We are rebellious and we are stiff-necked against the things of God. Behold, while I am yet alive with you, Moses, being still alive, you have been rebellious against the Lord. Time you should be able, when you read that phrase, and to go back and to say, how many times was they rebellious and how was they rebellious? The golden calf that Aaron made when they came to the waters and they backed them up and they were going to kill them and go back into Egypt. Just time after time. The brazen serpent, when they were complaining and he had to make the brazen serpent, and everyone that looked to the brazen serpent lived, and those who didn't died because God sent the serpents among them. And that's all in the book of Numbers. So all those instances of their rebellion against the Lord. And again, that history for them, but what about us? Where is our rebellion found in our society, in our country today? Where is it at in your family? Where is it at in our own lives that we mark our rebellion saying, we are as guilty as they was for this. And how much more shall you be after I die? I think that to be the greatest grief, that after he is dead, is that they will rebel and turn completely away from the Lord. just got to, I might be wrong in this. So if you judge me on it, that's fine. But if you invest in people to tell them the truth, children, grandchildren, I as a preacher, whatever, and you spend your energy and your time to tell people the truth, and you think, now that they're dead and buried, the first thing that they do is, phew. You've heard the accounts. Georgie was bringing this up the other day. When her grandfather was alive, every one of those kids and every one of them grandkids was in church on Sunday morning. And right after church, they had a family meal, and everybody was at that table. But as soon as that grandfather died and that grandmother died, it fell apart. Now, they came to church and they came to the meal because of the grandparents. I just, you know what I'm saying? You know where I'm going? To think to say, as much you invest time, you invest energy, you invest to keep them right as long as you're alive, and as soon as you die, they go right off into right field or left field. And you think, what good did it do? What was the purpose of it? Because as soon as you did, they go away from God rather than stay close to God in that. I would rather, again, choices, if you offered that or given that, is to say, after I'm dead, you got closer to the Lord. I think of those that I've been with in deathbed situations and people dying, and I've watched their family members promise them. Promise them. I'm telling you, I'll be in church. I'm going to get right with God. I'm going to do this. And I from time to time, I'll say to people, I said, I was standing right there when you promised them on their deathbed what you was going to do, and you haven't done it yet. Accountability. You're going to answer for that kind of stuff. And this is what Moses was saying. How much more after my death? Gather unto me all the elders of your tribes, your officers, that I may speak these last words in their ears, and I will call heaven and earth to record against them. For I know that after my death, you will utterly corrupt yourselves, and this again is what God had revealed to him and Joshua there in the tabernacle. And you shall turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. Evil will befall you in the latter days, because you will do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands. Not the best of testimonies, is it? So Moses spake these words in the ears of all the congregation of Israel, the words of this song, until they were ended. So, any questions on the rest of that chapter or any of that? All right. Well, we're going to fly down through this song. Tom, you sing the first 10 verses. Jackie, you sing the next 10 verses. We don't know what the melody is, do we? It's a song to be sung, though, right? That's what the song is that you sing. But it was to be sung because it was supposed to stick in their minds, and that as they sang the words, that again, a testimony for what people would hear in this.
Now, so there's a job for you. You can write music to this.
Oh no. I'm assigning the choir master here to Tom and Jackie to sing, and since you wanted to join in on that, you got verses 20 through 30. So.
Oh, I could do it. Y'all might leave by then, but
again, it is a task to set music. You know, you think about some of those old hymn writers like Fanny Crosby and ones like that, melodies that.
Wonder why nobody ever did this.
There is a praise song out about that we used to sing in one of the churches I've been in.
In what?
About
Moses song?
Yeah, where it was a praise song where I don't know whether I don't know what it was now, but I remember, I think it was down at Brubaker, whatever his name, down at the Brethren Church when we went down there singing about the song of Moses, but I can't remember. They sang so many that I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, now the reference of this is that you go over to Revelation, and there are 2 songs that are mentioned, and this is one of them. In heaven, this song will be sung. It is almost like a accountability thing, like we was talking about, but most of it is about the attributes of God. So I'm going to emphasize that as I start down through this, but I'm going to do it quickly. Now, again, it's 44 verses, We start here in verse 1 and it goes down through verse 43. That's the end of the psalm. Then 44 through 52, the end of the chapter, is just a couple more of those comments about Moses. So let's start in verse 1. We'll go to about quarter till here. Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak. Hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. And he just had said that. I will call heaven and earth to be witnesses against you for what you're going to hear in this. So angels and the things of this earth shall testify. Some people pronounce on that it's going to be nature. Nature will hold us in account because, again, we was given conscience, we was given abilities and things like that. And nature, of course, doesn't have a choice. It just is of what God created it in that. But earth is of those that shall be from God. Verse 2, my doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass. And of course, that kind of rain does what? What does that kind of rain do to the crops in the fields?
Makes it grow.
It's the best kind. It's not a torrential downpour. It's not hail or sleet.
Soaks in good.
It's the way it's supposed to be, right? And so he says that's how his doctrine, his word, his ways, that's what it's going to land upon the people and upon the nations. Because I will publish the name of the Lord, ascribing greatness unto our God. Again, I turn it into worship as our prayer time. Lord, may your name be published throughout all the earth. Again, when the gospel has reached to all nations, then the end shall be. So this is that testimony of that. Ascribe greatness unto our God. Lord, there's none as great as you. Our God, that there's a praise song that we have. How great is our God? The greatest thing in all the world that Georgie sings in that worship song. So there's a lot of those songs to sing. How great thou art, page 35 in our hymn book. So all that talks about God's greatness. Verse 4, he is the rock. What do you notice about rock?
Uppercase letter.
Which means
The name of God.
it is a proper name. So God's name is the rock. In the New Testament, who is called the rock? Peter, upon whose name was Cephas. Cephas meant rock. But the cornerstone over in Corinthians, the cornerstone of the building, which is the foundation, is
Jesus.
Christ. Christ is the cornerstone. And he is that rock of that foundation with that. His work is perfect. No mistakes. And again, to examine God's creation, his works, just fantastic. We, of course, elaborate too much there on the bees, but all of nature with all of that. For all of his ways are judgment. A God of truth without iniquity, just and right is he. So you see three attributes: truth, justice, and righteousness. All that. Verse 5, they have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. Who is they? Who's he talking about? They.
The Israelites.
His own children. They have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. They are a perverse and crooked generation. Who's he talking about? That sounds like our testimony, doesn't it? Even though, again, I've told you this time and time again, the word is in the context. This is about Israel, but you can see the parallel for future generations. So it is multi-dimensional with this. It's not just for that, there, and then. Verse 6, question: do you thus requite the Lord, O foolish people and unwise? What does it mean to requite?
To repay.
I'm sure you used that word this week, right?
To repay
Is that in your
something.
translation?
No, it's just mine. I don't know. I didn't know what I was reading here, but it's the New International Version, so that's what it has.
And that's what it's, so it's another translation.
Yeah.
What do you have, Jackie?
Repay.
Repay. You got NIV too? Okay. Anybody else? What'd you have?
It's King James.
You got King James? You got King James?
Mhm.
Okay. So requite means to return, whereas you guys translation there, repay. How are you going to repay the Lord? How are you going to requite him? for what he's done for you. If he's given you all these blessings, then you should give back to him your kindness, your goodness, and your favor. But instead, you're going to do all this evil in repaying him. Is not he thy father that bought you? Hath he not made you, established you? 3 actions. He bought you. When did he buy him? With the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. With the firstborn in Egypt. They all had to die in Egypt so that Israel could go free. He bought them with the lives of the Egyptians in that. He made you, again, we are made in his image, and he established you. The only reason that we are sitting here at this place tonight is because God allowed it. He allows for it. We didn't deserve it. He just does it. Remember the days of old. And as Jackie said, those are ancient days for her, right? Remember the days of old. And again, what days?
They were slaves.
Oh, go back and remember. Again, it is needful. Rebecca, she hates when I do history because she hates history. And I said, you just don't know how to appreciate where we've come from.
Mhm.
Everything that we've got is because of what came before us. And when you don't appreciate what came before you, and that's the thing, like with people being respectful to the military. They paid a price
Yes.
for us to do this. And what did they do? Refuse to pledge to the flag, refuse to honor those that are serving. I mean,
Well, that's the same way the people protesting. They don't know what Hitler and all of them did. And
they, again,
You know,
because again, not taught what
right.
history, why was there a war? How did this thing
killing the
happen?
Jews and
And they just
Yeah.
failure, closed-minded, don't tell us that, just tell us
don't
what we
they
want
teach
to
it
have.
in school no more?
Huh?
Don't they teach history in school
Not
anymore?
like, not,
Not like that. No.
no.
I guess they told you want to be a drag
So he
queen.
says, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Go ask your father, and he will show you, your elders, and they will tell you. Now remember the instruction? They were to have the things over the doorpost.
Mhm.
They were supposed to have the things on their gowns. That was always, everything was to be a reminder of the word of the Lord, that it would be constant before them with this, so that it would constantly be talked about. But if you don't talk about it and you don't share it and you don't tell it, you are one generation away from it being removed. And that's the reason of our condition. We have removed that telling. And they, of course, they don't even know who their fathers are in this generation. Verse 8. So when the Most High, that's not on because of your birth certificate either. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Everything was about them. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land, in a waste-howling wilderness. He led him about. He instructed him. He kept him at the apple of his eye. Who else was the apple of God's eye?
David.
David.
Yeah.
So probably the only 2 references in the Bible of the apple of God's eye with that, which is unique. As an eagle stirs up her nest, flutters over her young, spreads abroad her wings, takes them, bears them on her wings. And again, the illustration of that, to take them and to bear them. So that's what the Lord alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. He made him to ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields. He made him to suck honey out of the rock and oil out of the flinty rock. So back to, again, the sustenance of honey, oil, and all the crops increased, everything provided. Butter, and that butter of kine, of course cows, milk of sheep, the fat of lambs, rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the fat of the kidneys of wheat. And thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. Everything was plentiful when God was there blessing them in the midst of this. Verse 15, this is one of the 2 times that we're going to see this mentioned in the last couple chapters here. Jeshurun. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. Thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick. Now, what did God say about when you have eaten and are full and you become fat? Then what? You leave God and you forsake him in that. Jeshurun is a unique word. Only a couple times is it mentioned in all the Bible. The next place is over in the next chapter with that. But Jeshurun has a meaning. It is meaning a pure, righteous people. So it is what they were supposed to be as the apple of his eye. This was what they were supposed to be. It is a name for Israel, the children of Israel, but it is unique in the midst of that because of what it describes. Thou art covered with fatness, then they forsook God, which made him lightly esteemed, the rock of his salvation. You see, rock is capitalized again. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. What was the false gods that they served? You remember these? Because every time I say this, I go through them with you.
The golden calf and
The golden calf was one. Serpents. Molech, Ashtaroth. What was the sin of Ahab and Jezebel? What was their false god that they had to make all the people bow down to? Baal. So those are the main names of the gods, false gods that they worshipped and served throughout the Old Testament. And they lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with the abomination. The only time in this chapter abomination is mentioned. Did they provoke him to anger? They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods, that they came newly up to your fathers, who they feared not. Of the rock that begat you, thou art unmindful. There's the sin. Your minds are not given to the things of God. And again, that unmindful. I've got about 36 of those uns that I confess. Matter of fact, I don't think I have that one in there, unmindful. I'll have to add that. And you have forgotten God that formed you. Same sins of us today. And when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very froward generation. What does froward? That doesn't roll off my tongue so well. Froward. What does
mine's
that
got
mean?
perverse.
Huh?
Mine has perverse.
Perverse. Okay. Wicked, evil generation. Children in whom is no faith. Again, we know Christianity is that without faith, you shall not see the Lord. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. So we are based on faith in the midst of that, right? But what is that when God says, and I will hide my face from them? We had this last week when I talked about this. You know, more horrible thing when God says, I'm not going to look at you. Now think about that when he says that to a nation, when he says it to one of our family members, and he says, I'm not even going to look at you. I'm going to hide my face away from you. Because our whole pursuit is to do what? What's our whole pursuit as a Christian?
To see his face.
Lord, Psalm 27, when the Lord said to David, he said, seek my face. And David answered him back and said, thy face, Lord, I will seek. I love that verse. I love that phrase. Seek and you shall find. Over Matthew chapter 7, ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock. I mean, throughout all the Bible, it is that seek and find with that. So verse 20, our job is to seek him. But here it is that God says, you're not seeking for me, nor will you find me, but I'm going to hide my face from you because I know what your end's going to be. I'm waiting for it to happen in the midst of that. So we'll stop there with verse 20. That's almost halfway through this song. And I read it and I did not sing it. I'll let Tom and Jackie sing it. You guys do a duo for that next week.
What'd you say?
He doesn't read my first
He took my verses, Jackie. He took my verses. So 21 through 30, Emma.
That's your job.
You're up next week for American Idol.
You're right. There you go.
All right, so we'll pick up 221, get through this again. There's just some of these other things I want to point out to you
We got a reprieve.
with that. All right, you guys online, thank you for joining. Again, remember Thursday is 6 o'clock at Emmanuel Church. They'll be broadcasting from their channel, and I'll share it on my Facebook page. But that's where the National Day of Prayer service will be for that. those in the area, again, to be there with us for that. Those of you out of the area, again, just to follow along if you don't have services in your locale. And then Sunday, first Sunday of the month, and we're into a new month, and May is going to be busy. So just be in prayer and continue to do what you're supposed to be doing for your disciplines. Thanks for being with us tonight. Good night and God bless.